If you are struggling in your relationships, it's probably because there are 4 kinds of relationship dynamics and you only have 2. You need to watch this video all the way to the end because I'm gonna break down exactly what I did to transform my relationships, and if you do it, it'll be the same for you. What's up, you guys? It's your girl KB. For those of you who don't know, I am a wife, I'm a mom, I'm an entertainer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an author, all of the things. But more importantly, I champion deep, meaningful connection by disrupting the status quo so that you can connect and communicate at the highest levels. For most of my life until like my mid-20s, I struggled with my relationships. I just wasn't really good at it. And there's a long laundry list of reasons for why that is the case. But today I want to talk to you about the one that I struggled with the longest. For the longest time, I can remember being animated, super outgoing, just crazy. I loved people. My mom married a military man, so I traveled a ton of the world before I was like in middle school and just really enjoyed people and enjoyed culture. But when it came to the way that I did my actual relationships, like how I built my friend circles, who I let get close to me, I didn't have such an open, outgoing approach to how I did that. I pretty much had 2 extremes for how I related to other people. Now, the world is way different now than it was 15 plus years ago when I started doing this work. And so you would think that what I was struggling with 15 years ago, people aren't struggling with that kind of stuff now. Why? Because the world is different. We've advanced, like, we're good. No, not the case. Not at all, actually. So before I jump into these 4 kinds of relationship dynamics and explain to you why I only had 2 of them, we've really got to break down why people still today are struggling in their relationship dynamics. Why is it so hard to do relationships as an adult? Now, if you're a millennial or older, you're gonna understand this. This date that I am about to lay out for you is a very important date in every millennial's life. It is January 1st, 1983. Hear me when I say the birth of the internet changed everything for how we connect and communicate with one another today. So before you draw any conclusions about what I'm going to say, that like, you know, the internet is the devil and like people are crazy and the aliens are coming, like that is not what any of this is. I'm not about to go on that rant. What I am going to say is that the birth of the internet changed everything for the way that the world had the potential to connect. Do you know that millennials became the first generation who could acquire knowledge without wisdom? Literally, we no longer had to understand how a thing was, why a thing was, when we should do a thing. We could just know what a thing was. We were the first generation that could ask Jeeves. We were the first generation that could Yahoo. Like, we were the first generation that could like Google it. You get what I mean? Like, we no longer had to rely on the people in our life to learn things. We didn't have to rely on the people in our life to conclude things. Whereas before us, oral tradition played like a huge part in how we became the people that we become. Now, there's a lot of pros and cons about oral tradition because there are a lot of things that get passed down that don't need to be get passed down. Now, there's a lot of good and bad that comes with oral tradition. The point that I'm trying to make here is that oral tradition gave us the ability and championed relying on other people in order to live, exist, become, to grow, to mature. But in the way that we do life with other people now, there's not this strong reliance on other people, specifically our shared experiences. So we've got a ton of people on the planet who are doing life very individualistically and who are also lacking face-to-face, eye-to-eye, heart-to-heart communication. We went from being a very communal, interdependent people to being a very isolated, individualistic people. Now, here's the problem. We want deep, meaningful connections. Like, people want relationships. People want to do life with other people. And this has nothing to do with you being introverted. It has nothing to do with you being extroverted. Like, in order for you to live your best life on any level, wherever you are on the planet, you need people. But our capacity since 1983, January 1st to now, almost 40 years later, has literally caused our capacity for other people to come down to almost little to none. Like, we just can't do it. Like, we don't have the capacity. And I was feeling this tension 15 plus years ago. So I have absolutely no idea what people might be feeling today. And I was feeling this tension like 15 plus years ago. So I know that people today are struggling to do their relationships well. For me, because my capacity was so small, I had 2 extremes for how I was engaging with people. We were either close or we weren't. I liked you or I didn't. You were my person or you're not. I either rock with you or you can go. Get right or get left. And although I had simplified how I was relating to other people, the way that I was doing it in this extreme was stressing me out. And it was exhausting me. Like, I had less buckets to put people in, but it felt like more work. Because if you didn't mean the most to me, but you also weren't like meh, So I carried the pressure to make people more important than they were, more valuable than they were. I pretended to be more interested than I was. I had to act like I had more desire than I did to actually be with them because I didn't want to act like, I don't know you, sorry to this man. This was the cycle of my relationships for a very long time, and I hurt a lot of people in this process. Until I did this one thing, y'all. I got 2 more buckets. I went from having 2 to 4. So this is what I want you to do. On the bottom left square, I want you to write not deep. Then in a fraction, write not meaningful. And then on the top right corner, I want you to write deep fraction meaningful. These are the 2 extremes that I had. You were either everything to me or nothing until I put something in these other 2 buckets. On the bottom right bucket, I want you to write not deep, top, then a fraction line. Then I want you to write meaningful. And then on the top left bucket, I want you to write deep at the top, fraction line, not meaningful. Listen, y'all, this completely revolutionized everything for me because I no longer had to take people from meaning nothing to meaning everything. I could move them along in these 4 squares. Now you might be wondering, well, what the heck is a deep relationship that is not meaningful? And what is a relationship that is meaningful but not deep? I'm so glad that you asked. Here's how it works. When a relationship is deep, it has depth. That means there is a shared intent and intimacy is a part of the relationship culture. Intimacy does not equal sex. Intimacy is when you allow someone to see into you. And I guarantee if you think about the relationships in your life, you're not letting everybody see into you. When a relationship is meaningful, that means that there are 3 R's that are true. It is a relevant, recurring relationship. What does that mean? That means that if this relationship is meaningful to me, there will be a level of relevance to the relationship and a recurring nature to the relationship. So if a relationship is deep and meaningful, that means that you share intent and intimacy with this individual on an ongoing basis because their relationship is relevant to your life right now, and in a recurring fashion, you are seeing them over and over again. If the relationship is not deep and not meaningful, that means that there is no relevant, recurring relationship with this person. So let's put it in for the other 2 buckets. If the relationship is not deep, but is meaningful to you, that means that there is a recurring relevancy to this person. A coworker, maybe for example, but they don't know you and you don't share intent or intimate things with them. They don't see into you. You just work together. In this other bucket, relationships that might be deep, but not meaningful, maybe you guys have already established a thick bond. You guys have shared intimacy. You have shared intent in a former season of life, but currently today, you don't talk to that person. That doesn't mean that you have to completely throw the relationship away. It doesn't mean the relationship has to go all the way back to not deep, not meaningful. It means that in the season that it was, and right now it is not. But if you guys were to connect again, you would pick up where you left off. Why? Because it's already shared intent and intimacy. Listen, once I understood these 4 relationship dynamics, it changed everything for me. Everything for me. And it can do the same for you. All you have to do is go through the relationships in your life, maybe pick 3 right now, and really be honest with yourself. Is this relationship deep? Or am I trying to make it deeper than what it is? Is the relationship relevant to me? And even if it is relevant to me, is there a recurring nature to this relationship where the relationship is relying on our recurring connections with one another to actually be a thing? Ask. If you do this, you will relieve so much pressure off of your back to have to engage with every single person you meet on the same dynamics, because you don't. There are 3 benefits to doing this. 1, when you do this, it will relieve so much pressure in your life because you will not have to relate to everyone in these 2 extremes. 2, you're gonna clarify what the relationship is and what it is not. And you're going to stop pretending like said person who has this title in your life is actually satisfying the relationship dynamic, because they're not. And 3, you're gonna enjoy the people in your life at the highest levels because you've taken the time to actually make sense of what the relationship dynamic between you and them is. So remember, just as a quick recap, if you've been functioning with only 2 buckets, 2 extremes for how you're relating to people, today you can go from 2 to 4. You can have not deep, not meaningful relationships. You can have not deep, meaningful relationships. You can have deep, not meaningful relationships, and you can have deep and meaningful relationships. I hope that this video has been helpful for you. If it has, go ahead and like, subscribe, and share this video with someone in your life. I'm your girl KB, founder of Heart Convos. I want you to remember one thing, that it is not a hard conversation, it's a heart conversation. Until next time.